Namaste and welcome to another edition of the Bharatvaarta Weekly. I'm Roshan Cariappa. I'm joined by Abhishek Paul and Nirav Kanodra to run you through the news and events of the week that was. It's been a rather eventful week on the international front. Hey Abhishek, hey Nirav, a lot to discuss today. So let's get down to it. France has been rocked by protests since Tuesday, sparking a ban on demonstrations in some cities. This includes travel warnings as well. The protests were triggered after a police officer shot dead a teenager, Nahel, an immigrant, during a traffic stop in Paris's suburb of Nanterre earlier this week. Interior Minister Gerald Damanin told TF1 television that crack units from both the police and paramilitary force were among the 45,000 officers deployed on Friday. On Friday, France's largest public library in Marseille was set on fire by the rioters. Abhishek, this seems scary, right? I mean, in and around Paris, there's a lot of rioting happening. What is really happening here?
Yeah, so as you said, the latest trigger for the protests was this unfortunate shooting of a teenage boy, right, in a car. I think there are some video clips of the incident that you can see on the internet. Basically, let's say the cop got trigger happy because the people in the car were not following his orders to stop or whatever, right? But I think a single incident of a police shooting cannot be the trigger for such a big backlash, right? I think there are probably bigger societal reasons behind this, right? I mean, obviously, over the years, I think the immigrant population in France has sort of increased, right? And for whatever reason, right, they do feel some sort of alienation in that society. And of course, politically, given France's sort of electoral system, what they do is they kind of have these initial round of elections and then a sort of runoff between the top two candidates, right? And what has happened is essentially you have Macron, who's been winning last several times, who is like a centrist or center right candidate, and his closest opponent has all last two times been Marine Le Pen, right, who is a far right candidate, quote unquote far right, right, as per Western media. So, but probably the political choice of, let's say, the immigrant communities, etc., does not even get represented, right, in the final two, because it's like center right versus more far right, right? So I guess they don't have probably sufficient political representation right now in the system. And Macron himself has been kind of hardcore, right, in terms of his claims of saying that he wants to clamp down on Islamist extremism, etc. I mean, France themselves, I mean, as a country, is famous for its very strict secularism, right, which totally bans or tries to ban as much as possible the public display of religious symbols in the public space and so on. So probably I think it looks like, it's a big clash of cultures and resentment as well. I guess some sort of economic reasons are also probably behind the dissatisfaction in the society, right? And so all these reasons probably converge, right? And this has become like a tinder box in this instance. But I mean, that's what I think. But it seems like, at least in the initial stages, the French state and the police forces were totally not ready, right, to be able to combat or quell down the violence and the rioting in the initial stages. Maybe there is also a bit of uh, this phenomena where, what we saw in the US, right, in the last few years, where there was a lot of protesting, etc., after the George Floyd incident. So maybe that sort of gives people that, okay, maybe that is the right thing to do, right? Taking, the law into their own hands, and maybe there are not so too many consequences for all that. I mean, it's hard to really know what people are thinking, but that could also be one of the things which are influencing, young
But France
populations
was
in various
extremely good at
places.
integrating people, right? I mean, they've always had migrants from Africa, from elsewhere, from Asia, elsewhere, and they've successfully made them French in some sense, right? Is it the rate of migration that has sort of increased beyond control?
So I think the French, for example, will cite the success of their football team, right, which is very much immigrant community players dominated, right, and they are one of the best teams in the world for last two and a half decades, I would say, right. So yeah, I mean, the French have obviously had some success in the past with assimilation of immigrants, but I think over time I've seen, news reports in European channels, right, where they say that, there is also some sort of ghettoization in the big cities that you will see and all that, right? I mean, of course, there is the famous book called Submission by Michel Houellebecq, which talks about these things, of course, in a futuristic manner, but uh, I mean, it's probably not fully successful as well, right? And there are causes for grievances which lead to a lot of flare-ups as well.
So just to add to that, like one point, what happens is you have a lot of immigration where it was assumed that they will take up all the lower end service jobs or construction jobs, etc., where they had shortage of labor. And then as it like grows, if the economic opportunity doesn't grow, it's always taken up by the elites. So there's no path to move up for a lot of these migrants. So football is one. I think football and music and those ones are entertainment and sports is one area, but other areas they do not have that much of opportunity set. And usually when you have issues of inflation, unemployment, and a lot of other issues are already seething below the surface, and all this anger comes up at one point. And last point is, I think in today's day and age, very quick sharing of videos via like multiple social media platforms lets all these things go viral much faster. In earlier day and age, a small rioting in one particular suburb of Paris would not lead to a library being burnt in Marseille. So I think this is going like viral and much faster. And some of the leaders are also blaming like social media platforms like Snapchat, TikTok, etc. So which is also kind of because they feed off viral content. So they promote all this content higher because it evokes like primal instincts in humans. So maybe there are like a lot of other reasons. Hopefully, this situation comes under control soon, and there's like peace.